Good morning, good Erev Shabbos, happy Isru Chag. The Ramah suggests that as soon as we get home after the fast on Yom Kippur, the first thing that we should do after having a bite to eat is to go out and start building our sukkah. So to go from one mitzvah of fasting and observing Yom Kippur, begin the year, or the new year, so to speak, with a mitzvah of building the sukkah. And since we're not going to meet until after Sukkot, I wanted to talk about one aspect, or one or two aspects of the Sukkah itself, and that is decorations, Sukkah decorations. Why do we have them? What are some of the halakhas concerning them? Where does it come from? Also, the fact that once you have decorations up, you should be aware they are muktzah. Once you hang the decorations up, then that, as well as the schach, is muktzah for the entire week of Sukkot. I remember YU used to have a very, very, I don't know what they have now, but when I was a student, that had a very, very large sukkah, which could hold hundreds of students. And they had actual pine, not bamboo, over this entire like a whole forest of trees, that must have been cut down, but they were pine schach over the entire sukkah. And as the week goes on, the needles get dried and they fell down. And sometimes they would fall into the food that you're eating, the soup or the meat, whatever it might be. And I remember very clearly Rav Label Dulitz, Olav Shalom, would walk around from table to table and tell everybody about the falling pine needles, muktzah kol zayin, muktzah kol zayin. In other words, don't eat it by mistake, because the pine needles are all muktzah. But the schach and the decorations, once they're up, they can't be used the entire week. We'll come back to that at the end to see why that's important. The first sugya that talks about decorations of the sukkah, it's Gemara in Sukkah, Daf Yud, that says if you put a sheet under the schach to prevent leaves from falling, assuming you use tree leaves, that sukkah is possible. It's invalid. Because the whole purpose of sukkah is to sit under the schach. So you're putting a sheet underneath the schach, that invalidates the entire sukkah. So the inference from the Gemara that makes is that if the purpose is to prevent the leaves from falling, fine. Then it invalidates the sukkah. But the purpose of putting up the sheet is for decorative purposes, to enhance the beauty of the mitzvah, then it might be permissible. And the Gemara then goes on to prove that hanging sheets for decorative purposes does not invalidate it, although any fruit that you hang or any decorations, of course, can't be used until after Shmini Atzeres. And in order to get around the issue of a sheet underneath the schach, the Gemara says maybe that particular brisa is talking about sheets hung on the walls. They would have decorative paintings on sheets and hang them on the walls, in which case it wouldn't affect the sitting underneath the schach. Again, the Rishonim have a field day with this, and basically they come to a conclusion that it was an ancient minhag to decorate by hanging paintings or decorated painted sheets on the walls in the sukkah. Now, once we get through the whole discussion of what the sheets were and how they were decorated and so forth, Chazal always used to look for a source, a biblical source. Is there a biblical source to decorate the sukkah? Well, we have to make a sukkah. You have to physically construct the sukkah, put it up, but where does the source come from that you should decorate it? Not that you have to. The sukkah is kosher if you just have the bare walls and the schach. But is there an indication in the psukim or in other halakhic sources that you should decorate your sukkah? Naturally, whenever we do a mitzvah, you want to enhance the mitzvah, to show your chibuv mitzvah, your love for the mitzvah. So any mitzvah that you do, you try to enhance it. For example, when you make kiddush, so it's nice to make kiddush in a silver goblet that enhances the mitzvah. Zekeli v'yadveyu. This is my God, and I will adore him. I will enhance my appreciation for Hashem by doing everything in a beautiful way. Having a nice sukkah, having a beautiful esrog, having a nice talus. All the way, whenever you have a mitzvah to do, we enhance the mitzvah in any way possible, which comes from Zekeli v'yadveyu. Now, sometimes you can go overboard, but the basic source for enhancing your mitzvah is the pasuk Zekeli v'yadveyu. More to the point for Sukkos, Balaturim points out, Chag HaSukkos taselecha, you have to make a sukkah, but aspacha migarnecha, which talks about from your harvest. When you harvest, you make the sukkah. And the connection that he makes is that it was customary in many places, and still today you see it sometimes, to hang stalks of wheat or grain. I have seen, I did it a few times myself, to have little bags of each of the Shiva Saminim, the 7 species mentioned from Israel in the Torah, hanging from the sukkah. That's Osbachar Bigarnacha. So you're connecting sukkahs to the harvest. And that is another source. That's source number 2. Source number 3, which is I guess, the most significant as far as we are concerned, is the purpose of being in a sukkah is Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru. We have to live in that sukkah, be in that sukkah as much as possible. Whatever you do at home, Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru. Whatever you do in your home during the week, you should do in the sukkah. So if you read, if you learn, if you sit and schmooze, if you crochet, whatever it is that you might be doing, you should do it in the sukkah. Now, there are questionable practices. I've heard people bring the television into the sukkah because that's where they watch TV. So the whole question, is it appropriate, A, to watch TV altogether, but B, certainly in the sukkah? So that's an interesting question. You could check with your rabbi about that. If it's really Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru, and people spend a certain amount of time in the sukkah, is it permissible to bring a TV into a sukkah? It's an interesting question. But anything else that you do, yes.
Rabbi, you and I think over the years we talked about this, and he's definitely said no.
Good. Well, he's against the TV altogether.
No, but he said it's not doesn't belong to the sukkah.
If you are opposed to televisions altogether, then that makes a lot of sense. He calls it the idiot box, and people spend an inordinate amount of time. I don't know today if people spend more time on their cell phones or the television or a computer. But interesting, so the same question could be raised: can you bring a computer into the sukkah? Now, if you're using a computer for out of a business purpose, again, the whole question of working on Chol HaMoed, it's an interesting question. TVs and computers in the sukkah, that would be an interesting shiur all by itself. Is it appropriate? But basically, Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru, whatever you, so this is why you bring your nice silverware and dishes into the sukkah. It's not convenient to bring dishes into the sukkah when you have a large crowd. And today they have those very fancy paper or plastic plates that look almost like dishes. If you serve that way in your home on Shabbos when you have company, then you can do it in the sukkah. But if you serve on china at home, you should bring the china and the good silver into the sukkah. And I know for a fact that in our home, when I put up a sukkah, when I wasn't going to my children all the time like I do now, when we had our sukkah up, my wife always served the china and silver in the sukkah because that's how you ate, and that's how you ate on Shabbos and Yom Tov at home. So that's part of Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru. Taking it one step further, in terms of Teshvu Ke'ein Taduru, if you ever visited the community in New Square, most of the homes in New Square are constructed in such a way that the roof above the dining room comes off. And during Sukkot, they make the dining room their sukkah in the house. Now, the fact that they basically make it into a thatched roof is a separate halakha question. Because if you're in your dining room, your nice tablecloth and your nice furniture, and it rains, and you don't get the roof, the schlock put on fast enough, you can ruin your carpeting in your dining room. So they, in New Square and in Bobov and a few other Hasidic places, the schach on the roof, you can almost dance on it, which, in my understanding, is really invalid as far as schach is concerned. But they take reeds and they weave these reeds, and they're waterproof. Now, you're supposed to be able to look through the schach and see the stars, and it's supposed to be able to rain through because it's only a temporary and not a permanent residence. So that's a problem. I remember I was in New Square once after the old Rebbe died and his son had taken over, but halakhic traditions were usually addressed to the Dayan in Square. So I went for a walk with him, and we went over the whole halachos of schach, because their entire base medrash becomes a sukkah. Again, with this very thick reeds. They have the contract along the New Jersey Turnpike to harvest all of these reeds that grow on the side of the highway, and they weave it so that it's like a solid mat. So I asked them, I said, how can you have this schach that is so impervious to water? You can't see through it. It's like a roof. And that defeats the whole purpose of a sukkah. I know it's in your dining room, but even so. And he pulls his beard and he thinks about it. And he says to me in Yiddish, it was probably very cold in Square in Russia. But that didn't answer the question. So schach is very important. Whether you use bamboo, whether you use greenery, cedar is the best schach because cedar doesn't, there are no needles to fall down. It stays green for the whole week. And that's what you should use, but it's better than bamboo. Because the problem with bamboo is if it gets split and water can collect in the inside of the bamboo was hollow and it's become too much, it causes too many problems. So if you can avoid using bamboo, use plain wooden sticks are probably preferable to bamboo or greenery if you can. If you have your garden, you can just wait until Erev Sukkot before he cuts down some trees. Okay, so the decorations themselves, once they're hung, as we said, are muksa until after Shmini Atzeres. Apparently, people used to hang painted sheets, as I mentioned. Again, this is all part of Teshvu Ke'ein Toduru. You decorate your house. You have paintings in your house. You have nice furniture. So you should enhance the sukkah as much as possible. You don't want to bring furniture in that's going to get ruined necessarily, but you should try to, at least when you're serving the meal, serve it on proper dishes with tablecloths and proper silver and not plastic, because that's Teshvu Ke'ein Toduru. And it's also part of Zekelu V'Yanvei. The same way that we look to get a beautiful esrog and you build an attractive sukkah, you should enhance the mitzvah of sukkah by doing it in the loveliest way possible in terms of dishes, in terms of the settings, in terms of the decorations. Okay. The schach itself, I won't go into detail the different discussions about the schach. They compare the muktzah aspect of schach and decoration similar to the Hanukkah candle, that while it's burning, you can't use the light of the Hanukkah candle for anything other than the mitzvah, which is why you have the Shabbos. And there's a lot of discussion about bizui mitzvah and how do we enhance some of these aspects of sukkahs. And again, the best way you could do that is by spending as much time as possible in the sukkah, whether it's just schmoozing with a friend, learning, reading, whatever it might be, having a snack. And also, every time, there's an interesting machlokas, how often do you make the bracha of Leishev Basukkah? Now, you make it once when you make Kiddush, but what if you go out of the sukkah for something and then come back in again? Do you have to make another Leishev Basukkah? So normatively, we paskin you don't. If it's part of the same meal, you go in and out. If you're serving, for example, you go into the house or into the different door. You don't make a leishay basukah. It's part of the same general act. However, if you're going to a friend's sukkah or you're going sukkah hopping, then each sukkah you enter requires a leishay basukah. The Vilna Gaon was very, very makpid that he made a bracha every time he walked into the sukkah, even if it's multiple times during the day or even during the same meal. He was very makpid the bracha of leishay basukah. Okay. One of the most fascinating questions, there are many in Hilchos Sukkah, and there are tremendous questions about the shape of the sukkah and the size of the sukkah and how many walls you have to have. These are fascinating discussions all by themselves. The one that I found interesting is the tshuva of the Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer has a case of an individual who has no esrog. But he notices that in his friend's sukkah, he's hanging a perfectly kosher esrog as one of his decorations. With his friend's permission, can he use this esrog for the mitzvah of esrog on sukkahs? Dalad minim. It was already designated as a sukkah decoration, and sukkah decorations are mitzvah the entire week. So, how do we deal with this question? It's not actually a tshuva. It's in his commentary on the Gemara in Sukkah, and also he mentioned it in one of his tshuvas as well. And he paskins in that particular case to be very lenient. He says, number one, doing a mitzvah is not considered in the same category as benefiting like Hanoah, which is why all the decorations you can't be used during Sukkot to get benefit from it. But doing a mitzvah takes it out of that category of Hanoah. It's certainly not a bizui mitzvah when you're enhancing the utilization of that object for a mitzvah. Yeah. Another interesting question that he deals with. We know the mitzvah of Dalad Minim is only the first day of Sukkot. Ulkachta lachem b'yom harishon, the Torah says. The mitzvah is to take the lulav and esrog on the first day of Yontif. In the Beis HaMikdash, they took it every day. After the Churban Beis HaMikdash, one of the takanos that were made is that we also take the lulav and esrog all week long. But it's the Rabbanon. Only the first day is Doraisa. So since it's the Rabbanon, and Zekeli v'Yanveyu is a biblical mitzvah to enhance the observance of the mitzvah, so he allows it. And it's better, he says, to use the esrog for an actual mitzvah than for an enhancement, like the decorations of the sukkah. So that was his psak. It was a controversial psak. Some of his own students disagreed with him, but the Maharam Shik, who was one of his most famous students, defends his psak and claiming that basically the bizui mitzvah would not apply in this case. And he goes into a whole detailed discussion of what bizui mitzvah is versus kedusha. But by you elevating the esrog to a higher level, he certainly supports the Chassam Sofer's psak. Again, he doesn't quote the Rambam, who talks about this. That's a separate question. So the decorations for the sukkah are a very, very important part of enhancing the mitzvah. Many people have different minhagim as to what they hang in the sukkah. It's very nice to hang shivas haminim, if you can do that, posters, pictures, anything to enhance it. Again, people would hang, what I say, originally they would hang these sheets, painted sheets, wall hangings, and there are some places today that still do that. There are many places that build a roof over the sukkah to be lowered in case it rains. There are some halakhic concerns there. I suggest you talk to the rabbi about how to do that if you want. But if you drive through Muncie during sukkahs, you'll see almost every sukkah has one of these collapsible roofs where you lower it after your meal is done, and it protects the sukkah in case it rains. And then you raise it up on a pulley. These are all homemade contraptions, but they work very, very well.
Well, two questions on the decorations.
Yeah.
Let's get into the weeds a little bit. So I understand it's muksa. So on Kalamoid, if you wanted to move a picture, not a different use, you just want to move a picture from one wall to the other.
No.
Like, wow. And could you hang a new picture?
A new picture on Chol Hamoed, yeah.
Okay, but you couldn't move one from one wall to another.
It's muksa.
Wow.
That's
okay.
the muksa. You can't use it. I mean, you can touch it, but you can't move it.
You can't move it. Okay.
It's like on Shabbos. Something is muksa on Shabbos.
Yeah, by Solomon, that's
If it falls down into your soup, what are you going to do? I mean, you can move things that are muksa if they're on your table and you forgot to move it before Shabbos.
If the pine needles fall into your soup, eat the soup. Just don't eat the pine needles.
No, but the question is not a pine needle. If it's a big decoration and it's just plopped on your table, you need the space. So I think you could move it with a shinoi. I mean, because you could do that in your house too. When things like that happen.
Definitely, you can move it with a shinoi.
Yeah, but he's saying you can't rehang it though.
No. At least you can get it off the table.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the things that just to give you a suggestion that what I did in my sukkah, I took coat hangers. And I attached whatever decorations to. I put a hole through it, and I put the coat hanger through it, and then I bent it back in, and then I just hung them from the sukkah, and those coat hangers, they don't fall, and the schach doesn't fall off it either. And anyway, I want to mention one last thing. I've talked about it before, but I want to mention it again. The last day of Sukkot is Hoshana Rabbah. And Shmini Atzeres is a yontif by itself. It's a separate yontif, but it's connected. It's connected to Sukkot. And there's a whole discussion in the Gemara as to whether or not you sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres because of Sfeika Diyoma. You have 2 days of yontif because we're not sure which the real day is. Even though we have a calendar day, we still observe it. And Shmini Atzeres might be an independent yontif, or it could be the last day of Sukkot, depending on how you count the days, when they used to count by witnesses. So the machlokas in the Gemara is whether or not you sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. On the one hand, if it's a separate yontif and it's not part of Sukkot, then you're sort of debasing Shmini Atzeres. You're minimizing it. You're saying it isn't a separate yontif; it's part of Sukkot. On the other hand, if it is really the last day of Sukkot because it's Sfeika Diyoma, then you're missing out on a very important mitzvah. So the psak in the Gemara, the final psak, in order to avoid all these problems, the Gemara says, Meisiv yasvina nubruchi lo mevarchina. You sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, you just don't make a bracha leishev basukkah. That's the compromise. And that is the halacha. I'll say it again. That is the halacha. Now, there are people who don't sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, or only make kiddush in the sukkah, or only have one meal in the sukkah. It's wrong. I can't say it any plainer than that. The reason that there are some people who have Hasidic forebears may not eat in the sukkah may have applied to them, but doesn't apply to us, and I'll explain that. And there are many explanations to this. Some of them are, well, I'll let you judge what they are. Who was it? The Munkacher Rebbe. Munkacher Rebbe explains that the Hasidim don't sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres because they do hakafos on Shmini Atzeres. Separate reason why they do it, maybe in sympathy to Israel, whatever the reasons might be. They do hakafos Shmini Atzeres at night. And the Hasidim get all schwitzed and they're all sweaty and to go outside and sit in the cold sukkah, they'll catch cold. Because by that time in Europe, it was very, very cold at night. So that they didn't go into sukkah because it was dangerous. They might catch cold. That's a silly reason, but all right. There are many other reasons given. Some people. The real reason that Jews 200 years ago, 250 years ago, if they were Hasidic, what they used to do on Shmini Atzeres, they would leave their homes, their wives and their children, which is a separate question, and they would all go visit their Rebbe on Shmini Atzeres. Okay, very nice. However, Rebbes did not have a sukkah big enough to hold hundreds, if not thousands of people that would come to visit them. And the halacha is mitztayer potrim in a sukkah. If you're uncomfortable, if you don't feel good about it, you're exempt from sukkah. You can't fit all these people in sukkah. They are those people at that time, whether it was in Ukraine or Poland or southern Russia, who visited their Rebbe on Shmini Atzeres, who couldn't all fit into the sukkah, they were technically exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. That applied to them. It doesn't apply to their descendants today. So people have different minhagim. They'll make kiddush, they'll have one meal, but it's all, you pardon me, nonsense. It's a Hasidic minhag. I don't want to make fun of Hasidic minhagim, but sometimes these minhagim don't have a basis in halacha. And you look in the Shulchan Aruch, you look in any halachic source. On Shmini Atzeres, you eat both meals at night and during the day in the sukkah. You just don't make a bracha leishev basukkah. I repeat this every year. Hopefully, for those people who still stick to those minhagim, you know that it doesn't make sense today unless you're on your way to your Rebbe and he can't fit you in his sukkah. Then you might be exempt. But if you're not going to your Rebbe on Shmini Atzeres and are crowded out of the sukkah, then you eat your meal in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. Okay. Any
Wally, Wally, one question and one comment.
Yes.
One year we learned actually in the sukkah with Rabbi Yudin, what happens on Shmini Atzeres when you daven, you made a mistake and you said Chag HaSukkah Sazeh.
Yeah.
Instead of Chag HaShmini Atzeres Sazeh, right? You said that. Do you have to repeat Shmini Atzeres? And his answer was, I think b'diavad, you do not. I think basically because maybe what you're saying, because we do go into the sukkah,
yeah,
even on that day. But he said, I think if I remember correctly, this was a number of years ago, I think he said you did not have to go back and repeat your Shemona Esrei.
Yeah, probably not. B'diavad. I mean,
and the other thing is, you talked about, like with the schach, it's too much decorations problematic as well.
Yes.
Everything lined up. So many decorations that you can't even see out. That's a problem. That should be a problem too, correct? Yeah.
There's another issue that you bring up. Thank you for mentioning it. The size of your decorations. If you're hanging individual fruits or little bags of flour or barley or whatever, the Shivas Aminim, dates and figs or what have you, or even old esrogim, whatever you hang as a decoration shouldn't be too large. Because if you're sitting under a very large decoration, you don't get the mitzvah of sitting under the schach of the sukkah. So the decoration should be small enough that it doesn't block the sukkah. And again, too many decorations, could be a problem. There's also the issue of the type of decorations. And I mentioned New Square. It's unfortunate that very often some sukkahs look like Christmas decorations. Because what the Hasidim do is they go to the Christmas stores the day after Christmas and buy all these decorations at half price. And they use it in this. The colored lights and so, I mean, not the Christian, the Christian aspects of the decoration, but just stam decorations, the stars that open, whatever it might be. But the type of decorations that you do should be related somehow to the Chag. It shouldn't be just stam decorations. And also, you're hanging fluorescent lights. It shouldn't be too big, and the fluorescent light fixture should be over the table, not over where somebody sits. Because if you're sitting under a fluorescent light fixture, you're not sitting under the sukkah. So these are all little details that you have to keep in mind when you build your sukkah. So
December 25th lights. You sure we didn't have that first?
Say that again?
I've said the December 25th lights. You sure we didn't have that first?
Interesting question. We may have, but blinking lights in the sukkah are fine. But if the blinking lights are red and green, I'm not sure it qualifies.
No,
Molly,
Yeah.
so if a wind blows the schach over, are you allowed to move it back?
No, the schach is basically muktzah. So what very often, I can tell you what I used to do is on top of the cedar branches that I would put a couple of wooden 2x4s to weight it down so that if the wind came, it wouldn't blow it away.
Yeah, but sometimes the wind is so strong that even with the 2x4s, it moves.
All right.
I think we've had a number of years where it was very, very windy. We had a couple of years where I remember a lot of sukkahs, basically, the schach came down. And
there was a hurricane in the early 80s, and people's sukkahs wound up in the next door neighbor's house. Today, you don't have too many canvas sukkahs, small canvas. Everybody has those fiberglass ones, but the small canvas sukkahs can be blown away very easily. And they were. There was a hurricane, and I remember Milty Frank's sukkah wound up 3 blocks away in somebody's backyard. Because that happens. That happened. When hopefully the good weather will continue as long as it doesn't rain. We're okay.
Amen.
Okay. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a great Yom.
Amen. Thank you.
Shabbos, good yontif.
Shabbos,
good
yontif.
yontif.